Hello and welcome! Today we've got an interesting one with Milagro, episode 18 of season 6. Airing April 18th, 1999, Milagro has Scully being stalked by some creepy rat-faced guy who somehow thinks he can win over the heart of my girl Scully. Good luck with that one, bud. The episode begins with one of the most exciting intros you'll ever see in the series. A guy just sorta hanging around his apartment. Truly groundbreaking work. Oh, so that's where I left the strawberry jam. I'm no medical doctor, but I think you need that to live. See, you want to roast your heart at around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for about 25 minutes. Poor Scully ends up on the same elevator as this man, and maybe stop staring at her? I mean, I get it, it's Scully, but can you maybe tone it down a notch? You know, I think Scully should probably let Mulder know that his neighbor's kind of a weirdo.
Sorry about that, come on in.
I rode up on the elevator with someone.
Young guy?
Yeah.
New neighbor, why?
Did Mulder just go from brushing his teeth straight to drinking coffee? That's kind of gross. Scully seems a little interested in Mulder's new neighbor, who turns out to be a writer. But forget about that, we've got some murdered women to talk about. Mulder's new neighbor seems kinda nosy, though wouldn't that vent go into Mulder's kitchen and not his living room? Mulder and Scully are having a little chat about women having their hearts ripped out of their chests, and Mulder thinks it all comes down to psychic surgery. I can only imagine what his new neighbor must be thinking hearing something this bizarre. Meanwhile, at buttfuck point,
I'm not even doing anything.
Well, you're thinking about it. Well, we talked about this.
I told you I loved you.
yeah, lady, once a guy tells you he loves you, you have to have sex with him. I'm pretty sure that's law. Oh no, it's the fisherman from I Know What You Did Last Summer. Seems like Romeo's pushiness didn't exactly work out.
You won't be needing this.
At FBI HQ, the cameraman is really focusing on Scully's legs for some reason. Mulder calls her up to let her know there's been yet another victim. But forget about that. What's this random letter just sitting on the floor?
She had a condign certainty the killer was a male, and now as she held the cold metal at her fingertips, she imagined him doing the same, trying to picture his face.
Oh good, we get some pretentious voiceover. So is this guy writing what's happening, or is this all a coincidence?
To be thought of as simply a beautiful woman was bridling, unthinkable. But she was beautiful. Fatally.
Alright, let's all relax. Also, I'm going to admit that I don't know what the hell this guy is talking about. The little trinket Scully was so mesmerized by is called a Malagro, a kind of lucky charm apparently. What I find interesting is how Scully claims it came from Mulder, despite the envelope having no marking on it. If it had no marking on it, then how did it get to Mulder and Scully? And why does Scully just assume it's from Mulder? When Scully picks up the envelope, she also says that it was slipped under Mulder's door. She's been working with Mulder for what, 6 years? At what point does the office become theirs and not just his? Scully thinks whoever dropped off this lucky charm is the killer, and seeing how obesity is running rampant these days, I think she might be right. Mulder tells Scully she has an autopsy to perform, but she's like, nah bitch, I'm going to church. The burning heart? Just like the one on her little charm. I'm sure it must be a coincidence. Oh, what the hell is he doing here? Rat Boy starts giving Scully a little Bible lesson, but I don't think he knows who he's talking to.
You came here specifically to see this painting, didn't you?
Yes. How did you know that?
I saw you enter.
So, has he been following her this whole time? Rat Boy claims he's not following her, but that he imagined she would come here. I've got to use that excuse the next time I'm caught stalking some poor woman.
You're fit, with muscular calves, so you must exercise or run.
Muscular calves are always the first thing I look for in a future ex-wife. Rat Boy here basically studied every facet of her life, which is definitely not something a serial killer would do.
I have to admit to a secret attraction. I'm sorry I didn't include a note.
You know, they always say the worst she can do is say no, but then when you actually say something, you get the eye roll that can be seen from the space shuttle. Anywho, I think Scully's been traumatized enough for one day. Scully tells Mulder about her little run-in with his new neighbor, and that he was right. The guy just has a little crush. Though I guess crush is putting it mildly. Mulder starts investigating his new neighbor by rummaging through his mail. Oh, well, this is awkward. Like, really awkward.
I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Paget.
Paget.
Philip Paget.
You're a writer. Anything I'd know?
I don't think so.
Well, unless you count Scully's life story, which I think Mulder might know a thing or two about, Ratboy starts writing some more fan fiction accusing Mulder of mail theft, which is something he would never do. Oh yeah, I forgot.
But if she'd predictably aroused her sly partner's suspicions, Special Agent Dana Scully had herself become simply aroused.
Alright, I think I've heard enough from Ratboy. He starts going on about just how much Scully is into him, which based on her reaction earlier, I have my doubts. Oh my god, Scully, what the hell are you doing? This always makes me laugh so damn hard. Imagine writing yourself to be so irresistible that Agent Scully of all people can't help but fall to her most carnal desires. Her heart stirred with a mysterious attraction, not for the brooding writer, but for an internet reviewer who spends his evenings arguing over who was the better late-night host, Conan O'Brien or David Letterman. It was a dangerous impulse, reckless, irrational, the fleeting spark of a woman moments away from making a very bad decision. Thankfully, the feeling passed, like a fart in the wind. Mulder starts opening Ratboy's mail, which I'm sure is definitely not a federal crime. If only Mulder knew what Paget was writing about. Scully makes her way to Mulder's apartment, but is stopped by the sound of Ratboy's typewriter. How thin are those walls that you can hear a typewriter? Scully attempts to return Ratboy's little trinket, but he's like, "You're curious about me, aren't you?" This guy really is full of himself.
Furniture.
Oh my god, they did the meme! Like 20 years before it was a meme! I guess he was kind of right about Scully being curious about him because she decides to hang out and have a cup of coffee. And I'm sure it's definitely not roofied. To make things creepier, it turns out Ratboy first started writing about Scully when he was living in her old neighborhood. Is this the same neighborhood where she was abducted by Dwayne Barry? Was he there that night? I guess after noticing how often she went to see Mulder, he decided to move into the apartment next door to him so he could spy on her from there? This guy really needs a psych evaluation.
Would you sit and stay a minute?
You don't have anywhere to sit.
Oh, come on. No, I don't have anywhere to sit, but I do have this comfy bed we can relax on. Nice try, mister, but Scully isn't falling for that one. Oh no, she's falling for it. Oh, would you look at that? The light just went out. Guess that means I gotta take my pants off now, too.
Mulder,
Scully.
what are you doing?
It's like his Scully sense went off, alerting him that she's with another man. Mulder places Paget under arrest, not because he wrote about someone's heart being removed, but because he was getting a little too close to Scully. Mulder believes Paget is the killer because every detail of every recent murder can be found in his novel. While that is suspicious, I don't think that makes someone a killer. Mulder does, however, think he has an accomplice. Ken Nascimento, a Brazilian psychic surgeon who is a central figure of Paget's novel. Mulder sure does have quite the imagination.
Dr. Ken Nascimento, Sao Paulo, Brazil, immigrated here in 1996.
Where's he now?
He's dead.
Can't be.
Okay, so maybe he isn't exactly a figment of Mulder's imagination, but he's not exactly amongst the living.
Well, let's just say it ends with you doing the naked pretzel with this stranger on a bed in an unfurnished fourth-floor apartment.
The naked pretzel? I don't know what weird stuff you're into there, Mulder, but I've never included pretzels. Scully starts to read the part about the naked pretzel, and that's when Duke Nukem comes in. She starts reading something Paget just wrote and realizes that some poor girl is about to be murdered. Hey, it's the dead doctor who's not exactly dead. Mulder and Scully arrive at the scene of the murder, though there doesn't appear to have been a murder, so I guess what Paget wrote wasn't true. Doesn't stop Mulder from tackling some poor guy who just works there though. Although if he just works here, then why does he have the body of the murdered woman in his truck? So I guess there was a murder. Mulder thinks that Paget was the one behind it, but does this mean the poor cemetery worker is now taking the fall for it? Did he place the body in his truck, or was it already there? Mulder releases Paget from his cell, though he still believes he's involved. They just don't have enough evidence to hold him anymore.
In my book, I'd written that Agent Scully falls in love, but that's obviously impossible. Agent Scully is already in love.
Paget returns to his place and is confronted by the psychic surgeon Ken. So I guess he's alive? Well, not exactly. Turns out the killer was brought to life by Paget's story, and Paget wrote all of this so he could meet Agent Scully. I mean, you could just ask her out to dinner, but I guess setting up a bunch of psychic murders is much easier.
There can only be one true ending. If it is to be perfect,
She dies.
Wouldn't having a long-lasting relationship and maybe a family be a better ending? I don't know, maybe I'm the crazy one here. Paget heads down to the furnace to burn his novel, but of course Mulder has to follow so Scully can be all alone when she's attacked. You know, I don't think her heart is located there, Mr. Surgeon. Mulder runs to help Scully, thus giving Paget an opportunity to burn his novel. This somehow saves Scully and kills Paget at the same time. But didn't he rip out his heart at the beginning of the episode? Why did it kill him this time but not then?
Even as the stranger felt compelled to commit his final words to paper, he did it knowing they must never be read.
Milagro is certainly an episode, not something I hate, but it's always been one I kind of make fun of whenever I watch it. From the pretentious monologues to the creepy writer who literally imagines himself as so irresistible that Scully can't help but jump into bed with him, it's all a little silly. I get what they were going for, a Scully-focused episode that maybe hints at something deeper she desires, but is that desire really Mulder? Or was this just a way for the writers to jerk the shippers around for 45 minutes? They also kind of boil Scully down to a woman who's so lonely that her only driving impulse is that she just wants to get laid. Or at least that's what Paget is writing onto her. He projects his own fantasy version of her onto the page, one where she's not only yearning, but also secretly in love with him, which is very much not the case. There's also this weird meta layer to the episode, where the writers are kind of inserting themselves into the story through Paget. He becomes a stand-in for how they see the characters, and how writing them shapes reality. It actually reminds me a bit of Wes Craven's New Nightmare, because of course everything eventually comes back to Freddy Krueger. In New Nightmare, the events of the film are happening because of a script Wes Craven is writing. The script is influenced by his dreams, and he feels compelled to keep writing it because if he stops, the ancient demon wearing Freddy's face will fully cross over into the real world. Here in Malagro, Paget isn't trying to contain something, he's trying to create something that doesn't really exist. Scully's supposed feelings for him, but in shaping that fantasy, he unintentionally gives form to whatever this entity is, and it starts murdering people. The only way he can finally stop it and protect the woman he's infatuated with is by sacrificing himself. Maybe I'm reading way too deeply into it, or connecting dots that aren't actually there, but that's how I see it.
miss me.
The episode was conceived as what John Sheban described as a writer's horror story. The idea came out of a conversation he and Frank Spotnitz had in early 1999, when they were talking about the weird pressure and anxiety that comes with their job. From there, it just seemed natural to tell a story about someone who can imagine things so vividly that they actually start to exist. Sheban even joked that the image of someone tearing out their own heart would feel familiar to anyone who's ever agonized over a script or a novel. He and Spotnitz were especially proud of the fact that this was the first X-Files episode to really tell a story from inside someone else's head. Not Mulder's, not Scully's, but Paget's. Because of scheduling issues, Chris Carter was busy working on the pilot for Harsh Realm, which I'm sure absolutely no one remembers. Sheban and Spotnitz roughed out the structure of Milagro and then gave it to Carter to write the teleplay. Spotnitz later said Carter's biggest contributions were the idea of faith and healing through Christ, and the ending, the emotional beat where Paget proves that he really does have love in his heart by sacrificing himself to save Scully. Spotnitz would later describe the episode as personal, right down to the index cards on Paget's wall. Those weren't just set dressing. They were inspired by the exact card format the writer writers used when breaking an X-Files story, and Spotnitz even wrote them himself because the props department couldn't quite replicate their style. To him, the episode was a love story, not just between the characters in the script, but also about the writer's love for Mulder and Scully. When the script finally went out, it was immediately recognized as very different from the average episode. Director Kim Manners called it intimate and quiet. No explosions, no big supernatural spectacle, just two people locked into this strange emotional space, with Scully being drawn toward Paget like a moth to a flame. Manners loved the psychological aspects to it, but he also saw two very big risks. The first one being that Scully might come across as nothing more than a lonely, sex-starved woman making a very questionable decision. The second one was that Paget would tip over into obviously deranged writer guy territory. To avoid the first problem, Manners and Gillian Anderson approached Scully's interest in Paget less as romantic attraction and more as intellectual curiosity. She's more intrigued by his mind and his creative side, and not just because he has a penis. The second issue was solved by casting John Hawkes. The role was actually written specifically for him after he'd auditioned for the episode Trevor. He didn't get that part, but Carter and Spotnitz noticed something quiet and dignified about him, and they knew he could play Paget without turning him into a parody. And honestly, as much as I love to poke fun at this episode, his performance really is earnest in a way that grounds the material. Whatever else you might have to say about Milagro, Hawkes does bring a sincerity to it. The name Philip Paget itself doesn't come out of nowhere either. It was previously used for a character played by Nicholas Lee of all people in the Sci-Fi Channel series The Burning Zone, where he played a cult leader and evil psychic surgeon. Coincidence? Maybe. I vaguely remember promos for that show, and it basically felt like someone took the X-Files and said, what if instead of aliens, it was viruses? It even had a main character whose parents died from Ebola while he survived as a child, sending him on a very Fox Mulder-style crusade to uncover the truth about deadly pathogens. It sounds kind of ridiculous in hindsight. The reaction to the episode itself was mixed, particularly from viewers and critics who felt it reinforced the stereotype of independent women being secretly lonely, neurotic, and desperate for male attention. Gillian Anderson has spoken about that tension before. Fans would tell her they admired Scully because she could kick ass and work with Mulder without jumping his bones. And Gillian half joked back, so the epitome of womanhood is sexual restraint? I don't think so. There was a lot of discussion among fans about Scully almost being seduced here, and it definitely sparked some very heated internet debates. And honestly, that's where context matters, because Gillian Anderson herself has never really been shy about her sexuality. She's literally published a book about women's desires called Want, showed up to the Golden Globes in what she called a vagina dress.
Is there some warmth in there, or is it?
There is, thank you very much. There is warmth inside, yeah.
And starred in a show literally called Sex Education. She's clearly very comfortable with that side of herself. So when Scully is written as emotionally frozen or repressed, you can kind of see why Gillian might have felt a little boxed in by that version of the character, especially in an episode like this, where so much of Scully's desire is written through someone else's fantasy, rather than something she feels on her own. Milagro currently sits at 7.5 on IMDb. This one's not one of my favorites, but it's a fine look at some things the series has sort of explored in the past already, so I might give this one a 6, maybe a 7. Up next, we have a very interesting episode when we go back in time for a story about racism, baseball, and alien bounty hunters in the episode The Unnatural. So what do you think about Milagro? Let me know down in the comments. Anyway, that's all for today. I thank you all for the support and stay spooky.
A writer's story comes to frightening life.
The heart was removed in the same manner as a previous victim.
And now he's writing about Scully.
Why are you following me?
I have to admit to a secret attraction.
You know you're in here, don't you?
What does he say?
The X-Files, Sunday at 9/8 Central on Fox.
Huge thanks to all my channel members. You're the real MVPs of the Spooky Squad. Your support helps keep the lights flickering and the monsters fed. If you'd like to join up and help support the channel, check out the join button below. But no pressure, just watching and liking helps a ton too.